Hey there, commercial construction coffee talk fans. Thanks for chiming in. My name's David Corson. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of Commercial Construction and Renovation Magazine. This is what it used to look like. Let's see, what year is this? This is March 2021. And I had the Patel Brothers. It's a Indian grocery store chain, the largest one in the United States that were on the cover. And let's see, this one was 152 pages. And let's see what I was doing. Oh, I was doing some Habitat for Humanity for the University of Denver here locally. We're called the Peachtree Pios. That's so we were out there helping out downtown Atlanta, and I was huffing it in the humid summer. And I got my DU lacrosse shirt on there and just working my tail off there. That was a hot day, man. And I think DU was it was in May, and DU was in the semifinals. I think they lost to Maryland that year. But anyway, just a crazy day, and but it's always good to keep the magazine what I was doing. And actually, my hair wasn't as gray back then, but I still have a little left on there. So there you go. But it's always good to hold it in my hands. But we went digital. Our last issue we printed was August of 2021 when we had White Castle on the cover, the largest restaurant they had ever built. And don't miss the printer, don't miss the post office. And it's been an amazing transformation from print to digital. And I just had another 4.8 million people hit my website. My web guy sent me my stats this morning, and I'll probably go over 40 million for the year interactions. So we're rolling right along. And to all of you out there that have found our content, that like consuming it and come to our website, and all the hundreds of thousands of unique users that we have every month, you're gold in my eyes. You can't imagine how grateful I am for finding us out there. So we really appreciate it. But TGIF to everybody out there. Uh, you had Halloween, and now it's the start of the second month of Q4. You got 61 days left, and the end of 2024. You got the election. Hey, if you haven't voted and you still have time to early vote, go early vote. So you don't have to stand in that long line on Tuesday. But if you don't make the early vote, or you didn't do absentee or mail-in, whatever it is, hey, you got to go out on Tuesday and vote, because it's like playing the lottery. If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win. If you don't vote, you can't complain. I hate to say it like that, but you got to go out and do your civic duty, let your voice be heard, and let the chips fall where they may. I'm not going to miss any more of the commercials. I'm in a swing state here in Georgia. It's in my mailbox. It's in my text messaging. It's on my phone. It's in my email. I am just getting pounded by all of the local guys that are running in all the races. And but it'll be an exciting day on Tuesday when it comes up. But after that, look, we just had a Halloween, you got the election, you got Thanksgiving, and then the holidays, and boom, this year's over. Hello, 2025. So anyway, I saved the best for last from one of my recordings this week for our show. And his name is Stanley Stoll, and he's the CEO and principal of Forensic Engineering for structural analysis, etc. So Stanley, he's in Grand Junction, Colorado. For those of you who don't know, that's kind of the western shelf. If you look at it on the map, Stanley, say hello from Grand Junction.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David. Appreciate it.
Stanley, we're going to do we're going to give your episode in three parts. You'll tell your story, where you grew up, brothers, sisters, where you went to school, and how you ended up you are today at Knott Laboratory. And then we'll talk about lessons learned that our listeners out there would like to find out, how you kind of weathered the roller coaster that we've been on for over the last 4 years or so, and any cool projects or trends that you see coming down the pike as we go into 2025. And then you'll leave your contact info, and you'll leave us one positive thought, and then we'll close this out. So with that said, Stanley, the floor is yours. Tell us your story.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, David. So I grew up in Western Colorado. It's a beautiful part of the state over here. A little bit more rural, lots of space, hunting, fishing, outdoors, skiing, snowboarding. Kind of that's the gig over here. Hiking, there's lots of 14ers. David, you're familiar with those, 14,000 foot peaks. We like
Oh
to
yeah.
climb them, put them on our belt. That we've accomplished that. Some are super easy, some are hard and take a long ways to get to. Yeah, no, I grew up in Montrose. Sister, brother, and grew up my whole life in same house and graduated. Did time in the service, so
Oh,
straight
what
out
branch?
Army, yeah. So I spent time down close to Georgia. I was in North Carolina at Fort Bragg for
Mhm.
about 4 years. I was in Georgia Airborne School, actually.
I was going to say you must have been airborne because that's where the 92nd is in Eastern
Yeah,
Carolina. So there you go.
yeah, yeah. So did 4 years there. Had a blast. Did a tour in Kosovo. I missed out on Afghanistan and Iraq, so that's okay. The Yeah, so combat engineer, so jump out of planes and blow stuff up. It's a pretty good gig as an 18-year-old kid, right? Not mature enough to go to college at that phase of my life, and the Army did me great service in just helping me age and hopefully wise up a little bit through those years. Came back to Colorado. Love Colorado. Love the outdoors. Came back here after the service and started school here. Spent 2 years doing gen eds, and I finished my undergrad and master's degrees at the University of Louisville in Kentucky. My wife and I went out there, and so we spent about 5 years total there. Engineering degrees, yeah, structural engineering is ultimately the degree I got. Worked for a firm there, a small firm that was really focused on existing buildings and restoring, repairing existing buildings. And so when I had the opportunity to come back to Denver, Colorado, and I got on with Knott Laboratory, I was looking for something that was going to be able to apply to existing buildings generally. I thought they were fun to work on. I thought they were complex. They've been through the environments. They've been through snow loads. They've been through differential foundation movement, all kinds of things. And they just kind of created a unique, set of challenges in working with those. And so Knott Laboratory is a forensic engineering firm. And generally we're working for, attorneys who are representing contractors or something like that when something goes wrong or a building moves or something like that. And we're trying to figure out what happens. Work for insurance companies doing the same exact thing, and then also do the repairs to those structures subsequent of whatever type of damage might have occurred. Tornado, vehicle goes in. I've got some fantastic stories about vehicles going into buildings and then trying to clean them up. We had some that fun story, when the marijuana was getting legalized and all that stuff. We had some people that just, they just really wanted to be in that building. So they drove their vehicle into it. The building fell into the crawl space. They couldn't back out. They had to run out of the building. So anyhow, we get called to come in and do repairs to a building for whoever or why ever somebody might damage that building. And so just been here at this company for like 14 years now. Love the industry, love day-to-day challenges and so forth. And yeah, that's a 10,000-foot view anyhow.
Hey, listen, a couple things. My grandfather was a combat engineer underneath Patton in World War II, and you'll get it. I got to grab this. You'll get a kick out of it. I just sent it to another. I was up in Philly last week, and we did a reception, and the guy that was did a tour of his fixture manufacturer. He was in the Army, and anyway, he was a combat guy. Once again, airborne. So anyway, this is my I just sent him a picture of this, but this is my grandfather's hard hat from World War II. And
Wow.
he
Yeah.
rebuilt all of the bridges that the Allies had bombed and, rebuilt Europe and all that. And my family's been in demolition, construction, recycling, sustainability since 1888. So,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
this is the real McCoy. This is
Yeah.
let's see, 55, 24. This is an old hat, but it's in great condition. But this was his original hat that I have him on wearing his hat on top of a a white horse with his six shooter like Patton had, and it's crazy. But anyway, that's
That's
that's my
awesome. Yeah.
that's my when you said combat engineer, I'm like, oh, I got to tell him the story about my grandfather
Yeah.
did. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
but anyway, listen. First of all, thank you for your service. I mean,
Thank you. I
that's
appreciate it.
awesome. Second thing, I actually lived in Louisville. I did
Did
two
you?
derbies. I lived off of 64 and Hirschborn Lane, and
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember. It was kind of on the east side of Louisville from
I
downtown.
lived, I'm spacing the name, but like one exit to the east off of 64.
Yeah,
Because
you
it
were
was
a little towards in
Hurstbourne,
downtown. Yeah,
Taylorsville, like right in there.
yeah,
These are a little
Yeah,
bit
Taylorsville.
blurry,
Mhm.
but yeah,
Yeah,
same area.
no, I love
Same,
Louisville. You know, it was a great town, and I did an event there a couple years back for my women's event, and took the tour of Churchill's Downs, which was great. I did an event in Lexington too, so I like Kentucky. It was a good state to live in, and I'm just a Yankee living in the South. I'm a damn Yankee. I just keep making my way, and I've been in Georgia since '92, so I've
yeah,
seen
yeah,
everything get built, and you know it's been a great but there's a lot of transplants down here. There's
yeah,
locals and there's the transplants, so
yeah.
one of
Yeah.
those things. But
Well, on Louisville, real quick, since you're familiar with it, so Louisville Arena, I did the inspections on all of the foundation during my time at the engineering firm. So, which is really cool because it's built right on the river. There are hundreds of piles going down 100 feet, if I remember correctly, underneath that thing. And so did all those foundation inspections. That was one of the projects that we did there. And then some of the other ones were like on hospital systems where like parking structures needed to be upgraded, degradation, deterioration of the concrete. And so did a lot of work there. That's where I really found passion for kind of fixing structures. So yeah.
I was there in Louisville. I was there probably I'm gonna say early '90s because I went from Louisville to Greensboro and then I ended up in Atlanta for this food company I was with, and it was called Colorado Prime, believe it or not. And in any event, the actually Louisville, they had a minor league hockey team called the Louisville Ice Hawks, and
Okay.
probably before your time, but anyway, that's what was going on there, and the bungee cord things we're getting into just coming out. They had a couple bars that they had the bungee jumps where they you could go down there and fling yourself up and stuff that were downtown Louisville.
Yeah.
Crazy
Yeah.
stuff. But
Yeah. Yeah.
the crazy thing about Louisville is when the Derby comes up, the city looks just beautiful. But then when Derby Day comes in, it normally rains. So I saw one Derby where it was nice, and the other one, it was a mess on the inside in the pit there. It was just, you could drink as many mint juleps as you want, but it's just muddy and nasty when it rains. And it happens all the, you know how it is. Beautiful.
It
The
is.
just done up correctly, and then race day comes and Mother Nature doesn't cooperate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but
And so there's Oaks there. So Oaks is on Friday, right? So Derby's Saturday, Oaks is Friday, and then Derby was on Thursday before it. So locals kind of choose your race you're going to go to. You might choose the weather a little bit, but normally Oaks was where we would go to Oaks on Friday, and then everybody in town would have their own parties on Derby Day
yeah.
around. But it's just a fantastic time to be in Louisville.
Oh
So
yeah, that whole week is an amazing
yeah,
week. And for those of you who've never checked out Kentucky, uh Churchill Downs has been there forever, and it's a really they do an excellent tour. And in Lexington, they've got Keeneland, which is actually a grass track, and that's where they really have all of the where they do the horse selling and the breeding and all the farms. I mean, the bluegrass state they call it for a reason. It's the only place in the world where they have this mineral that's in the soil and makes the bones hard for the horses. It's a whole history thing. But if you ever get a chance to take a tour of either one of those tracks, uh, it's just an awesome thing. And we did a women's event in Louisville. They loved it. And actually, one of the things was they got to make hats, uh,
yeah,
so they could, we spent 45
yeah,
minutes, and then we had a competition who had the best hat and whatever.
yeah,
And when we did Keeneland, we took the tour, and then we went out to a farm where we saw how they bred all the horses. And they went out, and it was great. I mean, the hospitality in Kentucky is just pure, real, true Southern. It's just, it's still the South, but it's really, if you've never been there,
yeah,
you got to check it out. It's beautiful during the summer. So,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So let's let's talk about March 2020, 4 years ago, four and a half, whatever it's been. Everything's cooking. There's cranes in all the cities. Everything's going along. Boom, stops. two by four with rusty nails. You're just sitting there going, okay, it's gonna be a couple weeks. And here we are, 4 years later. We're out of the tunnel. There's still some potholes and speed bumps that everybody's going through. Talk about how you weathered the storm and, maybe some lessons learned, et cetera, that you went through during the last 4 years that our listeners out there in Commercial Construction Coffee Talk might find of interest.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind, let me back up just
Yeah,
3 months
sure.
because it's a important milestone for us. So my partner and I had bought the company on January 1st of 2020. So now fast forward to March of 2020. And we buy a thriving business that we've been a part of for years and years. And we've got these great plans and everything to, continue the growth of it and do all this. And, Merry Christmas, like, holy smokes, what is this? Right.
Yeah.
And shutting everything down, projects are hitting hold, all of that. I think, the what got us through that time frame was our people. We just kind of shifted. We're in this industry of where we work for attorneys, we work for insurance companies, we're repairing things that still need to get repaired. A fire happens in a structure, commercial building, whatever, they still need to get that restaurant reopened and put back. So, there was a couple months of trying to figure out which direction we're going to go. What are we going to do? And projects kept running for a little bit, but there was mandates on mandates on mandates. And how do you handle this? And, just everything, everything we're dealing with during that time frame. What we had to do was just kind of pivot and find those areas that were going to keep going and so be able to sustain us through that time frame. The legal system, those cases had to keep going, so those would kept moving along, and we could keep doing inspections. We just had to do it with basically full PPE and
Mhm.
and then insurance claims still had to get evaluated, and they still had to get us into homes, and we're kind of used to dealing with asbestos and all of that stuff. So we just started wearing it on a regular basis and adding to it to try to meet the latest, requirements during that time frame. So it was challenging, obviously, just like anybody else, but we just found ways to navigate through, and that's a blip on the radar of the company as far as revenue and so forth. But we just we were able to sustain ourselves through that, and didn't lose any people, which we're very proud of. We didn't have any layoffs or anything like that. We just got thin and creative as we moved through it. So, later in 2020, things started to open up, and then 21, we're okay. Everybody's adjusting to a new norm, and it's kind of a blur at this point, but
Yeah.
and we just keep going, right? Like I think it just set us up. We happened to be in a remote company environment. Going back to about 2015, we were largely in a remote environment. So that was, just a blessing, honestly, that we were prepared and could still do business just like this, right? And then since everybody's learned how to do this, and look at all the good that's from that part of it, right?
Yeah.
Work from home.
Were you using Zoom before or not?
I forget what we were using at that time. I don't know if it was Zoom, but we were, Microsoft Teams and things like that. But
Mhm.
yeah, we were very much a video. This was the format of the company at the time. So
Yeah, same with me. I was I sold one of my magazines and I merged some things, and then I used to have 14 employees, and now I do everything with about 5 people, and everybody's virtual, and got rid of the offices and all that overhead. And so I was kind of sitting back. I was working out of my house. I didn't, it didn't really phase me. And we had a digital magazine. I was lucky because I kind of ignored it, and but I had it. If I didn't have it, I don't even know if I could have made the transition. Uh,
yeah,
but it was an unbelievable time because when I look back at 20 we in January of 2020, right when you bought your company, I had my 10th anniversary summit. Most people had ever had to attend it, and I was up in Milwaukee looking at hotels, and I was going to go that weekend to Columbus, Ohio, to see University of Denver lacrosse play the Buckeyes, and my parents were going to meet me up there. and that got canceled. And March Madness got canceled, and it just and then it's gonna be a couple weeks, and so. I put my one issue out, and then I sat back in April and had a lot of long nights. And then my editor and my art's like, let's just do digital. And we'll do a small press run, and and then we just decided, hey, we'll just go 100% and be done with it. But and I'm a completely different company than I was when in 2020 than I am today. I'm still like I said, my family's been in construction since 1880. It's fifth generation. So I grew
Yep.
up in the scrapyard, and you were talking about asbestos. My all the grandsons had when you got your driver's license. I grew up outside of Philadelphia in Pottstown, right about 15 minutes from Valley Forge.
Yep.
Anyway, you got your license, you had to go work in the scrapyard. You had no choice. And
Yeah.
the granddaughters, they didn't have to do it. Maybe today they do it. I don't know. But back then it was just a boy thing. And
Yeah.
so one of my jobs was that it was in out off I-95 right outside of Philly. We were knocking down this building, and we had to get rid of all of the asbestos off the pipes before we could recycle the steel. And
Yep.
anyway, I was a hose guy, but we had the PP. This is like, let's see, 1976, 77. I don't know. I'm 61, so you can do the math.
Yeah.
Anyway, was born in 63, so I was 16. Yeah, so 1976 is when I got my license. Anyway, I got my PPE on, I got my respirator, my gloves, my goggles. It's about 100 degrees in this freaking building, hot and humid in Philly, and this asbestos crew comes in. And I go, hey man, you guys aren't going to wear your masks. He's like, oh, we don't wear those masks. I thought the guy was going to cough his whole lung out, man.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
lung going. I'm like, I'm wearing my respirator. I'm not going to deal with this. Is
Yeah.
before mesothelioma and all that stuff was even, they didn't know about it. And
Yeah.
so, but I was a hose guy. We were knocking off big trunks, and the stuff gets everywhere. And there, you're
Yeah.
dealing with it all the time, asbestos, so
Yeah, asbestos. And then, when you're on fire scenes and you're going through trying to figure out how you're going to repair this structure, right? All of that stuff. Yeah, we're used to wearing that these days. It's part of the job. And you take it off for a minute and you start breathing, yeah, you're coughing like that guy in quickly, so
yeah.
you got to appreciate it, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
I'm telling you, I still remember that guy. I was inside. I'm with my two cousins. We're all born in June, and we're all in our stuff. And then, the asbestos group comes in. They were going to show us what the heck we needed to learn, and that was the first thing that happened, man. The guy comes in, and he's like, "Oh, I don't wear those raspberry," And I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
man, I'm putting that. I'm not going. I'm not going to be like that guy." Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
learned really quickly. Hey, look, learn, do. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but that, a lot of the people that I've talked to over the last 4 years they've had some of the best years of their firm because they learned, that there's more than life than just work, number one, but number two, that they can trust their employees. And you were lucky because you already kind of were in that virtual element, and that depending on what state you were in was going to determine what you could do because every state had different regulations. Like here in Georgia, we didn't really shut down. So I saw
Yeah.
projects that were done, and it was a little more lax. But if you went up north where they were a little more tight on regulations, you might not have been able to do that project depending on what you were doing. And
Yeah.
really state by state dictated that. But as things opened up, people kind of got back to things, and everybody was in construction. I looked at them as first responders because if you were a contractor or an engineer or whatever, and you had a project that was deemed essential, whether it was a hospital or whatever it might been, you had to get on your plane, put your mask on, and go be a warrior out there and get things done. And people don't realize that they think of police officers, firemen, doctors, nurses, etc. But there were a lot of other people that had to go to work, just like grocery stores. They were made essential. You had to go and stock the shelves and keep food on there. So, anybody that did that, that was in that realm, just like your company, kudos because things would not, wouldn't have moved forward, and we didn't want anything to stop. And
Yeah.
construction just kind of kept on going. But now,
Yeah.
the biggest challenge that companies like yourself, since you're an owner, you can appreciate this is, yeah. the people that had offices, how do I get my people to come back to the office, or do I go hybrid a couple days a week? How do I keep my company culture? Do I downsize my facility? How do I do that? Because everybody wants to go to ball games or, skiing or to the beach or whatever, but they don't want to come back to the office, because they proved themselves, right? But you were already,
Yeah.
you didn't have that because you were virtual, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we just embraced it from a company culture perspective before that. To tell you the quick story on how we even came up with this idea is, I'm living in Denver at the time, and we're mostly going out and doing site assessments, and then we come back and write some reports, do some analysis, blah, blah, blah. And we would, drive right, I would go out, do the inspection, then drive right past my house over to the office to sit there for maybe an hour left of work or something like that, work on something, and then sit in, 45 minutes of traffic driving home. That was just, it was inefficient, right? And so efficiency just drives me nuts when we can correct that. So it became very easy to, well, that makes no sense. Let's just stop at my house and I'll do that last 2 hours. You'll get more production out of me by allowing me to do this. And I don't lose my time personally, at 5 o'clock driving home for 45 minutes, hour sitting in traffic. So that was kind of what was driving this was the people culture component of this. So we just started embracing that, pushing that out. And then, yeah. And so this office that I'm sitting in right now has been here since 2013. And this is the first satellite office for the company where we started embracing those. And then I was part of the process with my business partner of figuring out how do we do work in this arena. So there's licensing issues for engineers, there's codes and all these different things that we had to figure out and all that, but we figured it out. So then we just start adding that on and giving that back to other employees, and we found out how powerful this was as a just for people to gain back their time, right? Like, because the company is taking people's time past 5 if they're traveling home, like and for engineers, like most of us, I can be just as effective sitting here at my desk based on people, right? You got to accountability and things like that, you got to have those things in place, but I can be just as effective sitting here. And so the time that the company is taking is the personal time after that. And so we just have really embraced that, and it's been it's just part of the culture that we've developed, is just focusing on the people. And that's one of those components. Now, when you mentioned the the accountability and those things, well, that's based on, I know everybody's dealing with that from a management perspective, but that is, we trust first, right? That's our perspective. Trust first. Just don't give us a reason not to trust you. And as long as you're doing your stuff, and we can see it in production and things like that, right? Products are going to clients and then things are on time, and you have a general understanding that people are doing their work, but trust first. And then don't break our trust, right? Don't break our trust. Don't create a reason for us to question, but we're going to be faithful to that trust first. Like, you have my absolute trust that you're doing your work, and just don't cross that, because then now we got to put accountability things in place. And really, it's not the culture. Like, I need to just flat out trust you. So do your job. We're all adults. Come to work, do your job. I will give you back as much time as I possibly can. And then you enjoy that for your family. And let's, my commute, I'm in a shop actually outside of my home. My commute is 20 feet across the road. Right. And then I'm with my kids, and I have all that time with them. And I want that for all my employees, not just me.
Yeah. Listen, there's some people that have to work in an office. They're just not made to do it. And hopefully they made the transition and learned how to do it. Other people have no problem with it. And but
Yeah.
that's but like I said, a lot of the people I've talked to over the last couple of years, if they could have found more project managers or superintendents, they probably would have done more revenue, but they're just not out there.
Yeah.
It's the shortage, and it doesn't matter if they're welders, HVAC techs, whatever. If they were more available, they could have bought a bit more off the apple. But if you're in retail and you've got a store opening and it doesn't open on time, you don't even want to go through that. And everything is built
Yeah.
from the store opening. The circulars are
Yeah.
printed. You got to backstab it with the schedule and say, hey, this is where we're going to break ground. This is where we're going to have this done, and this done, and here, it's it's a huge small world out there, and everything that you do, you got to reach those deadlines. And but like I said, I've talked to so many people that they just had great years, and this year's almost over, and 2025, it'll be what it'll be. But and you can't worry about stuff that you can't control, just like the election. I
Yeah.
can't control it. I don't know who's going to
Right.
win. I've done my
Right.
thing. I'm going to let the chips fall where they may, and move on, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's you have to have that mantra of just do what I can control, right? Worry about what the things that I can control. And the rest of it, yeah, you just kind of
Yeah,
gotta have
yeah.
faith.
So what's one of your, well, besides doing some of the stuff on the river in Louisville, what's one of your favorite projects that you did from a forensic point of view?
Um, so I do a lot of, I'm trying to think of a favorite project. I don't know. There's a lot of those. I love concrete restoration. Those projects are always fun. But I deal a lot with foundation repairs and buildings moving. Here in Western Colorado, we have a lot of expansive soils. So, that's different for folks. People aren't used to having structures get lifted up off the ground. Everybody assumes that the other end settled. And when you come in and you look at it and it's actually heaved on one end rather to settling the other end, creates uh, those are complex problems to fix, right? So if it's heaving, what do? You come in and lift the rest of it. Well, that didn't really fix the problem, right? Because the other end can still continue to go up. And so, it's a difference in foundation types and things like that. But we get into a lot of foundation repairs where you're coming in, and there's several projects that I would kind of loop together. Just higher end. You're familiar with Vale and some of the real estate that we have over here. We have some high end
Mhm.
properties all the way down to $500,000 properties and things like that. And so I would just loop several of these into the same bucket of they're complex, and the foundations have heaved. They probably didn't have the right foundation type under them for the risk that the owners were willing to accept in the beginning, and it's created quite a lot of distress in them. And so coming in and installing micropiles underneath those properties, stabilizing them on those, getting void put in underneath the foundations to prevent the remaining soils from heaving and lifting on those, and just isolating them from the structure. Those are they're terrible for the owners, but they're complex for us. So they're a lot of fun to understand and figure out. They're a great problem to solve. But we also feel like, at the end of the day, once those things are fixed and stabilized, the amount of stress that you relieve for those homeowners, it's a good feeling, right? You're fixing something for somebody that was, a lot of times keeping them up, days on end, worrying about cracks and is my house going to fall down. I think there's a lot of those projects that exist in Western Colorado. You go up towards, you mentioned skiing at Buttermilk, down in the Glenwood area. There's some of the most collapsible soils down there. We have a house down there that there's 15 inches of differential movement in that house across from one corner to the other, 15 inches. So this house, you walk into it and it feels like you've seen those mirror things and like those funny houses and things, like
Yeah, that's mhm.
feels like, right?
Yeah.
And they had a 4 foot fish tank in this, and you can just look. That's at your level. You got a water level in their house because you can see the water line and how that differs from looking across the fish tank. Like, that's how much movement had come out of that. And so helping somebody through stabilizing a house like that, it's a lot of fun, right? From the problem solving perspective. There's always the people part where we're trying to be, cognizant of, this is somebody's home, right? But simultaneously, that's what makes it of extreme value when you're able to help them through those repairs on that process.
Yeah, we had the house in West Vale for 30 years, and there was so much maintenance on it because people, it's cold in the winter and it's
Yeah,
beautiful. Colorado is a completely different state in the winter than it is in the summer. But there's
yeah,
the drastic weather changes. It takes a toll on the deck, the metal roof that we had on. I mean, it was just serious maintenance. And Well, shoot, they were renting that house out before Airbnb was even a word, or a
Yeah,
thought, you know.
yeah,
But it was in Westvale. It was on the mountainside. Exit, I think it was 163. No, that was
yeah,
Edwards or Eagle. I think it was one. I don't know. It was right past Vale was
yeah,
in Westvale. So anyway, uh, but there was a lot of maintenance involved. Every summer we had to get ready and get the house ready for the winter. But there was always stuff and the river was right behind us. And depending on how much runoff there was during the melt, would be determined, hey, what was going to happen with the
yeah,
backyard, and there was
yeah,
and there was definitely movement there. You could see it, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, so I don't know if you're aware of this, but I'm the chair of the existing building committee for the National Council for Structural Engineers. And so, post Surfside, the collapse down in Miami that was in 21, I'm spacing my years
Oh
now.
yeah, the building went to. Mhm.
Structural engineers are trying to figure out, how do this, it's a big failure. There's Davenport, Iowa, masonry collapse up there that killed a couple people. There's been a few major failures and stuff like that. And so the Structural Engineers Association, we're trying to figure out, how do we prevent these? So our conversations are generally they're leading to maintenance, preventative maintenance, and addressing these issues, but also in communicating those issues back to the owners who can actually make a decision to make those repairs, right? And that's that big task. You mentioned the river coming up and all the maintenance things. It's real, right? And you
Oh
name
yeah.
it, whether it's Miami or it's the mountains of Colorado, you're trying to figure out and be on the front side of preventing some of these issues from occurring. And that's the topic that we're involved in a lot right now.
For those of you who've never been in Glenwood Springs, that's kind of as you go through the mountains to get to, you have to go through the canyon and the Glenwood Springs, and in there they have these natural springs that they smell like rotten eggs, the sulfur, but they've got these hot water pools that you can go in. It is such a cool place. My fraternity up there, we would have a weekend up there, and I don't even want to talk about some of the stories I got back there, but Glenwood Springs, another really cool place to check out if you're in Colorado. So.
And they've added another one too. There's another one right across the street that's on the river. So there's two of those hot springs there in the Glenwood area. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no, like I said, I did all the stuff when I lived there. I skied, I camped, I hiked, I skied the glacier, I did all that stuff. It was,
right.
but it's a complete different state. All the skiers come during the winter, the snowboarders or whatever, and then in the summer, it's beautiful. And then if you live in Denver, every day, depending on how hot it was, thunderstorm would roll into the foothills. It could rain a mile away, it wouldn't, but then boom, it'd be nice again. And you wanted the rain anyway because they wanted to keep the Cherry Creek Reservoir, full. And so, um, but listen, if you're out there in commercial construction coffee talk and you're having some issues with your facility or your home or whatever it might be, and you wanted to bounce some questions off of Stanley. Stanley, how would someone reach out to you?
Yeah. So email's the best is SSTOLL at knottlab.com, KNOTTLAB.com. I imagine you'll link to that. But yeah, email's the best. You can reach us at the main phone number and get any of our team members. We've got several offices scattered across the country and continuing to grow. So love to be of assistance. Love helping people through situations like that for sure.
Hey, and you can call them and talk about Louisville and the Derby and that kind of stuff too. Or if you're an Army guy or you're a combat engineer, you can go, you can
Yeah,
talk about all those good times in Fort Bragg and jumping out of planes and
yeah,
all that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
listen, if anybody wants to reach me, I'm at David C at ccr-mag.com. Listen. The publicist sent me, Stanley Story, and I looked at it, and I didn't know he was in the Army, but I knew what he does. Hey, yeah, let's put him on here, forensic investigator, for building, etc. And here he is on the show. So listen, you got to send us stuff. I'm data addicted. I look at data all day long. I'm a content creator, so it's like playing the lottery. If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win. If you don't send me something, I can't look for it. Very tough to get in the magazine. but we post up all day long. You can send me a press release on it's an anniversary for your company, new ownership, a new product launch, charity golf tournament. Maybe you're doing a mentorship for the skilled trades, whatever it might be. We will find a place for it. And our turnaround time is about 24 to 48 hours, but we'll send you the URL. It's indexed by Google. So it's good for your SEO, that search engine optimization. That's the way people find you on the web, and it's a win-win. And then we answer all our own emails, and but listen, send it to us. We like looking at all that stuff. And like I said, that's how Stanley got on here by the publicist sending me his basically a press release on his company. So uh, as we finish up, if there was one positive thought or phrase as we're ending the year and we're going into 2025 that you want to leave with our listeners out there, what would it be?
Innovate. Look at what other folks are doing across other industries, whatever, and apply that to your industry. There's so much power in that. And like the technology that is pushing forward right now is amazing. We just get to find new ways to apply that to our field. And honestly, it's extremely fun. So
Are you getting into are you applying AI into your your daily repertoire? Or?
in little areas in research and things like that, but like laser scanning and 3D space, those are big areas for us to push with building assessments and things like that. So that's where we're pushing a lot more anyhow.
Yeah. Well, listen, innovate is such an important term. I don't care if you're an athlete, a business, whatever. If you don't innovate and stay on the cutting edge of technology, because technology these days, even with AI, it's at warp speed. So anything you learn like now, 6 months from now, it's going to be outdated. That's how at warp speed it's going at. So you got to be nimble. You got to be able to pivot quickly, but you have to be able to innovate because there's so much that's going to come down the pike that is going to, we won't even recognize buildings probably in the next 10 years, the way that they're getting designed, et cetera. And it's just like these two storms that came through. Hell, I'm building my house up on the lake. I just started my framing. My lumber got delivered on Monday. Tuesday we started framing. Wednesday it rained and the storm came in on Thursday, knocked the whole front of my house down. And went up Saturday after the storm got out. I went up and took some pictures, texted it to my framer. I'm like, man, look at the front of the house. It's pixie sticks. He's like, oh, no problem. We'll fix that in, half a day. Not a big deal. And I was like, okay, man. And and my neighbor, he was standing out there and he's like, oh, yeah, it's still standing there. I'm like, oh my God, the whole front's gone. You didn't hear that all those sticks go down? He's like, no, I didn't hear anything. I'm like, there you go. So, but,
Yeah.
like I said, you figure that Storm Helene went 600 miles up from Big Bend in Florida all the way up over Atlanta into Western Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, and it was insane. I mean, I've gone through a bunch of storms here where the storm will come in, but it'll lose its power. That storm didn't lose its power. It just kept
Yeah.
on going. It was a freak
Yeah.
of nature, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was just it was insane. But I hadn't put any wood walls up. I just had the frame up. So I'm like, oh, the wind's gonna blow right through those 2x4s or tens or whatever they were doing on the front. But the whole front got knocked down, man. It must have been a really good gust. And I
Yeah.
mean, it was bolted into the slab that we put in with the bolts, and I had footings and retaining walls. I mean, that thing was secure. And I went up there. I'm like, man, that had to be a good gust to blow the whole front down. But
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, um, a couple things as we finish up here. Number one, if you're on a construction site, we want you to be safe. We want you to be able to get home, have dinner with your family, spouse, kids, pets, whatever, and be able to do it again the following day. Number two, even though old man winter's coming, depending on where you are in the country, uh, you think the heat's going, you got to stay liquefied, you got to stay hydrated because when you get dehydrated, you get headaches, you make mistakes on the job, just like you do on the athletic field. We don't want that to happen to you. So if you're drinking water, put some electrolytes in your bottle or in your cooler or whatever, but stay liquefied. Trust me, you'll sleep better at night, you'll be better at work, you'll be more productive, and it's just good for you. Last but not least, we want you to hit the like button too, so we can the algorithms can find this episode with Stanley and find out what he has to say. So hit the like button; we would really appreciate it. So Stanley, pleasure meeting you. Listen,
Likewise.
when I come out to Colorado, I normally come out there a couple times. Normally, I'll do it either during the winter or the summer, but we'll see. But I'd love to meet you in person, and
Yeah,
yeah,
likewise.
I'd love to go out and investigate. See how it go out. I don't think I've done a forensic, gig out there, so it'd be great to see how it's all done. You know.
You tell me you're in town. We'll get you hooked up. So
And,
um
and lastly, thank you for your service. All right.
yeah.
Anybody, doesn't matter what branch you're in. I don't care. Thank you because, without you, we wouldn't be where we are today, you know?
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so everybody listen, have a great weekend and happy TGIF. And, hey, listen, it's, the first week of the second month of Q4. And like I said, you got, the election. So make sure you get a vote on Tuesday if you haven't done it. And then, you got Thanksgiving and then boom, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you got going on, Festivus, if you remember Seinfeld, and then you got New Year's, and boom, 2025 is going to be here. And Stanley, say goodbye from Grand Junction. Grand Junction.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, David. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and
So
I'm going to say goodbye from Sugar Hill, about 25, 30 miles north of downtown ATL, just below the Beaufort Dam on Lake Lanier. And we will see you next time on another episode of Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. Stanley, awesome conversation. I really appreciate it. All right.
yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right. See you guys all later. Ciao.